Hello and welcome to a series of 3 films related to indicators and situation analysis for the ICT and Pedagogical Development Program. In this series, we will first have an introduction to the area of developing indicators for the program. Then in the second part, we will relate to national level indicators. And in the third part, to organizational level indicators. In your program, you also have individual level indicators, which we are discussing at different sections or sessions in the program. The indicators are based on the objectives of the program, and you can see the objectives here, and you can relate to them from your material that the Life Academy has given you. These objectives can be seen on 3 levels as impact objectives, outcome objectives, or output objectives of the program. And we are looking at them in these films in the 2 first levels, the impact or national level, the outcome or organizational level objectives. So this is a model from UNESCO describing a framework of how ICT can be used in education, from policy development to the training of teachers, to the development of curriculums in school where ICT is used in different subjects, to the actual implementation in the subjects of ICT, as well as monitoring and evaluation of ICT efforts done in school, and then back into revising policies for ICT in education. So this is a wheel of increased knowledge of ICT use in education. Also, we have used a model for developing indicators particularly, and this one is discussing a number of things which are important to keep in mind when formulating indicators. The first is the actual name of the indicator. Is it a concept, or is it a kind of definition, or at what level is this indicator actually being developed? Secondly, what are the data sources from which the data for the indicators can be derived? Is it primary sources from the organizations themselves or secondary or statistical sources? Those are important things to keep in mind in understanding the type of value or data that you can get from an indicator. Thirdly, how are the indicators supposed to be collected, the data for the indicators? By whom and at what intervals are the data collected? Thirdly or fourthly, is there a cost involved because of the difficulties to retrieve data for indicators? Then there may be a trade-off that some indicators, although you would like to have the information, it's actually too costly to get the information. Then comes the question of, can we trust the data? What is the validity of the data that we get from statistical sources or from case studies or other type of data sources? Another important question is, who will actually analyze and report the data? What are the knowledge? Is there a bias from those who are analyzing it? Important questions to keep in mind when defining a model for indicators. Also important is the validity of the interpretation. How do we know that this interpretation of the data is actually a good interpretation or based on a hidden agenda by those who are interpreting? Also, who will actually use the data? This is of course a key question. What are the benefits and who are the beneficiaries of the data that we are collecting? Is it only for statistics or is it actually for improvements of the practice? And finally, access and dissemination. How transparent can we be in actually opening up access to the data that is being collected? Those are different in different countries, but these are key issues which are important to keep in mind when defining an indicator or a set of indicators, in this case for ICT and education. When also assessing an indicator, one usually can use these 5 words to assess whether an indicator is clear or good enough. Is it clear? Is it precise and unambiguous as a state of a certain indicator? Is it relevant for the subject at hand? Is it economical enough to get the data from the groups or the population that we would like to get? Is it adequate? Does it actually answer the questions that we want to answer by getting this type of data? And is it monitorable? Can we make amendments for the data? One important thing is we may not get it right the first time that we are defining indicators. So a model for improving indicators, and that is what we have developed, is quite important to give room for improvements. When we are developing indicators, it's important to understand at what level these indicators are. In this program, we are defining indicators at 3 different levels, as I mentioned, and in a result-based chain, the first level of result is the outputs from, in this case, individuals like yourself who are taking part in the program, to the organization that make use of the change projects which you are going to do in the program, to the national level, where we hope that the improvements of some of the change projects will actually be seen at national level, at policy level or capacity building level, for example, for the nation. When we developed this program, we thought of the development in a number of steps, as you can see here, a number of steps which are describing how we actually came up with the model. An important part here is that we're studying previous studies of indicators. We also were testing in a number of stages, as you can see in this model, we were testing different sets of indicators in order to get a balance of the indicators, and indicators which are enough for us to measure what we need for the program, but not too many indicators. We have found from literature that to have too many indicators may be a problem in actually getting good data from the participants. So this model by this model we show you how we have developed the model of indicators, which we will show you in the next 2 films. And the indicators were basically developed out of a list of 53 indicators from UNESCO. The indicators from UNESCO are divided into 8 different categories, as you can see here, from political commitment all the way down to monitoring and evaluation. And from this list we selected 4 different areas which we found important for us, given the objectives of this program, to measure. Those categories that we selected were policy development, capacity building, infrastructure, and funding. So we took out of the UNESCO list these 4 categories and made indicators from that list. We also found out through the trips that we mentioned in the process in the previous slide that it's a very big difference between rural and urban areas. Thus we need to make a differentiation between whether we are answering an indicator for a rural area or for an urban area. And I'm sure that can be echoed in your country as well, the difference between rural and urban. Also, we saw 2 different evolutionary aspects which were important. The first one was at policy level, for a policy actually existing, to being implemented, to being evaluated, and to being revised. So we want to assess where in the evolutionary process a policy for ICT in education actually is in your country. And on an organizational level, which we discuss in film number 3, we are discussing whether a project is planned, moving on to started, and then moving further to completed, so that we can see from your organization, those who have been involved in the program, where projects have been planned, started, and now hopefully are getting completed. Here you see the main literature that we were using when we were creating the lists of indicators on these 2 levels. And finally, I just want to share with you these sites, which are very good in keeping up to date on ICT in education, and which have been useful for us in the development of indicators. And I recommend you to have a look at these 4 sites on ICT in education, which are updated blogs and good information on ICT in education. In the next 2 videos, we will be showing you how you can fill in the forms for national level indicators and organizational level indicators. Thank you very much.